All right, fam. We are back for another whiteboard session with my guy Yomi today. Yomi's going to be talking about Azure Data Factory and how he used it at his last project, and just kind of talking about like the ways of grabbing data. So Yomi, I'm
Yes.
gonna kick it off to you, bro.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yomi. Welcome to Yomi's class in session. Okay. So today we're going to be, I guess, just giving a simple explanation of how we mine data.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say vendor A is looking to provide trip data
Okay.
to the company or to the firm.
Okay.
So the first thing that we are looking to do is we're looking to do the initial presentation of what the data is going to be like, where we're going to be getting the data from.
Okay.
So initial point A, well, step one.
Okay.
This is a very important part because the worst thing for you to do is, I feel, is for you to now start going back and forth in emails, trying to understand what is going on,
Okay.
trying to understand the type of data, what type of data, the file format that you're going to be receiving.
Okay.
Now, we start this meeting, we have a project manager who is going to be leading this meeting. And from this meeting, we are going to be asking the vendor, hey, where are we going to be grabbing this data from?
Okay.
It can either be an API.
Okay.
It can either be from a file folder from the vendor side,
Okay.
which at that point is either going to be an SFTP. But SFTP, I believe at this stage, especially when we are dealing with cloud,
Yeah.
you only really have to say SFTP when it comes to on-prem.
Okay.
But when we're talking in the cloud, this is almost really an easy process depending on how you're getting the data. But let us assume that you're getting the data from SQL Server.
Okay.
At that point, the vendor will need to provide you with database access to the SQL Server.
Okay.
So that's a user access.
Okay.
So sorry about that.
No, you're good,
Question
bro.
is, are we going to be writing to the vendor? No, we're not going to be writing to the vendor. So what we're going to be needing is the read access.
Okay. So they'll create a user on their system,
Yes.
and then they'll
Yeah.
give you the
So
credentials.
they create a user on the SQL Server,
Yep.
not the system.
Okay.
So
Oh,
yeah,
the actual database.
on the actual SQL Server. Well,
Yep.
not the data. Well, it's the so when a user is created on the SQL Server,
Yep.
it's created on the server level first,
Gotcha.
and then you have to give the access on the
Permissions to
database
be able to
level.
read it. Okay.
On the database level, so which can be read access, write access, sysadmin access, but really only the database admin on the vendor side is going to be having sysadmin access because that a sysadmin access pretty much provides you
Everything, right?
everything
Yeah.
on the SQL Server, and
Gotcha.
that is not security
Yeah, you already
compliant.
need it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have the initial meeting. We talk about how we are going to be getting the data. We talk about the columns that we're going to be receiving. What data type
Okay.
is the data?
Okay.
So we have the initial meeting. We ask the vendor to provide provide an example of the file,
Okay.
a file example.
Okay. And this would be like via email or something, or how
Yeah, that can be through email.
Okay.
If the data is that secure, as in a PII data,
Yeah.
then they have to provide us with a way to get the data. So,
Gotcha.
an example of the ways that we have gotten this data is through Dropbox.
Okay,
We
gotcha.
go to the Dropbox that is provided to us.
Yep.
We get the file example. So at that point, this I believe is the most important part.
Okay, so that's
Now,
step one right
yeah.
there.
So now it's time for us to play around.
Okay.
Well, yeah, now it's time for us to play around.
Okay.
We're playing around now because we know the file example.
Yep.
Now, I go into Azure Data Factory
Okay.
and I go into Azure Data Factory, go into my workspace or Data Factory.
Okay.
Now I start the build for a new pipeline.
Okay.
Azure Data Factory allows you to be able to pull in different types of data.
Okay.
But you have to create the data set and you also have to create the connection.
Okay.
Okay. The first thing that I would do is go into the Azure,
Okay.
go into the Data Factory,
Okay.
DF, or they call it ADF.
Okay.
Go into the Data Factory. Then at that point in the Data Factory, I'm looking to create the connection.
Okay.
To create the connection, I need the link
Okay.
to the vendor's SQL Server.
Okay.
I get the link to the SQL Server. I verify the username and the user password. I try to make my connection
Okay. How do they transfer that username and password to you guys?
through Dropbox.
Okay.
So that is
Gotcha.
most likely going to be coming with the file example.
Gotcha.
And it's also under secure location.
Gotcha.
And the way user access works in SQL is you can either give the option to allow the user password to expire,
Okay.
or you also have the option to say password never expires.
Gotcha.
Now, is your company going to allow you to say password never expired? No, most
Yeah.
likely they are not. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to say that I've never gotten away with it.
Yeah.
But if your CISO, which I don't even remember what that's called, but
Yeah.
if your CISO
Yeah.
actually knows what they're doing,
Yeah.
then they will notice that, hey, why are you giving user access with no expiration?
Yeah.
But whatever. We get the user access, we get the username and password,
Okay.
we make our connection. Once we verify our connection, then we look to see the table that we're grabbing data from.
Okay.
We look to see whether that is there.
Okay.
Okay? We make the connection, get access to the table
Okay.
in SQL Server.
Okay. And are these external customers or internal customers for you?
Well, this is outside vendor, we're the customer.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So when you talk about connections, you have to go through firewalls and
No, so
SGs
anything relating to firewall has already been embedded inside Azure.
Gotcha.
So we already have a networking team
That's already
that already deals with that.
Gotcha.
But when we're talking Azure Data Factory,
Yep.
those kind of things are already being dealt with on the vendor side.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha.
Azure just automatically allows you to be able to create those connections
Gotcha.
as long as you have access.
Okay. Okay. And then on the user's end, does it matter if they're in Azure as well, or it doesn't matter what
It
cloud
doesn't matter at all.
vendor? So AWS, GCP,
Yeah,
whatever.
it,
Okay.
it doesn't matter.
Sweet.
So you can create any connection.
Nice, nice.
You can even create SFTP connection.
Yep.
API connections, and pretty much Azure allows you to do anything
Gotcha. Gotcha.
as long as you have a connection to it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Cool. So we get access to the SQL table. We verify. Okay, well the table is there.
Okay.
Now it's time to pull in the data.
Okay.
There are different ways to pull in the data. The most simplest way is just there's an option to do a copy item.
Okay.
Okay? You do a copy item,
Okay.
that's an option,
Okay.
which includes a source
Okay.
and a sink.
Okay. And this is an ADF thing.
ADF thing, yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And in the middle is the mapping.
Okay.
The source is the vendor.
Gotcha.
The sink is my firm.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. So you do one-on-one mapping. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I want this to be mapped to this.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So, mind you, by the time I get to the source and the sink,
Yeah.
for the source and the sink,
Yep.
I create a data set.
Gotcha.
Well, let's just call it DT.
Yeah.
DT. The data set is going to include, it's pretty much going to be a picture of what the data looks like.
Okay.
I know what the data looks like on the vendor side.
Okay.
I know what the data is going to look like on my side because I'm going to pretty much try to create a replication of what the vendor has. Now,
Gotcha.
it's not all the time where I'm doing a table to table.
Okay.
There are times when I'm doing a JSON data
Gotcha.
to table.
Okay.
Now, that takes manipulation.
Oh, so transforming is
Yeah, transforming it. That
Gotcha.
takes a lot of manipulation.
Okay,
you
gotcha.
know. And there are times where you're receiving CSV files
Yeah.
that there are just some CSV files where they call it a CSV file, but there are just some mercs in it
Yeah.
that allows the data to not be able to be manipulated
Gotcha.
to the way that you need it.
Let me stop right there. So for those who don't understand what JSON and CSV are, JSON is JavaScript object notation. Think about those little red things that you see that says, hey, name, Yomi, age, 32, things like that. There's other nuances behind that. And then CSV is comma separated files. So think about like your Excel spreadsheet. You can do it like a save as, and then you can say save as CSV. Just play with it, and then you can kind of see what that looks like.
Yes.
So just wanted to throw that
So
away.
now, I've created the data set for the vendor.
Okay.
I've created the data set for my side. Now,
Okay.
also included in this, well, we want you to pull in this data daily
Oh, okay. So you got to automate like
Now you have to automate
yeah.
because now I have to think about cost. Azure costs a lot of money, right?
Okay.
So I know that I don't want to be pulling in massive amount of data,
Yeah.
especially when we're talking about the vendor maybe having years of data
Gotcha.
on their side.
Okay.
Now I have to think about cost because I'm trying to pull in the data daily, and I
Yeah.
also have other processes that are trying to use the same RU, or they're trying to use the same RU, which is request units or DTU. I mean, when it comes to Microsoft, they have different ways of naming. There's
Gotcha.
RUs, there's DTU, there's for managed instance. They actually allow you to create vcores
Okay.
where you cannot choose the amount of memory that you want to use.
Gotcha.
They just automatically allow it
Okay.
based on the amount of CPU that you're requesting, whatever.
That's based on the ADF thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's
Gotcha.
based on the ADF thing. That's
Okay.
based on the Azure. It's fully an Azure thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So now they want you to be pulling this data in daily. Now, for a SQL Server table, I could easily just pull in the data.
Okay.
It doesn't cost much.
Okay.
But now they want me to pull this data as a JSON.
Okay.
Now, with a JSON data, it most likely means I'm pulling the data from API.
Okay.
In most cases that I've seen, you're pulling the data through API. Now I need to manipulate the base URL
Gotcha.
for the API.
Okay.
But I guess that's not what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So pretty much we pull the data in,
Okay.
we pull it in into our sink, which is going to be another SQL table.
Okay.
Well, it can be another SQL table, and it can also be pulling that data into another file. It can be a JSON file, it can be a Parquet file,
Okay.
but we know that our landing is the sink.
Okay.
There's this thing that we use. We have landing.
Okay.
We have the landing zone.
Okay.
We have the also have the curated zone.
Okay. What's the difference between the two?
The landing zone is where all our data that we're getting from external vendors.
Yep.
This is where everything is going to land.
Okay.
The curated zone is the data that we have pulled, that we have manipulated.
Gotcha.
Now, this data in curated zone is business ready.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So you grab the initial dump and then you make it business ready.
Yes.
And that's what you offer to your
yes, that to the business
business analysts and all
yes.
that. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So the curated zone. The
Okay.
curated zone is the sink.
Okay.
Once everything has been done, we have chosen the right data type. Again, there are times when what we're collecting from the vendor,
Yep.
the data type that we are seeing is just not matching.
Gotcha.
That takes some trial and error to make sure that everything
Lines up.
works.
Yeah, yeah.
If it doesn't work,
Yeah.
just rely on Vaca. Vaca will take anything, but obviously you need it to be in the correct format. So
What's
that
Varchar?
so Vaca allows you to be able to, okay, let's do it like this. There's date. There's a date type.
Okay.
There's also a Varchar,
Okay.
which is like a sentence. Now, date has its own date type,
Yep.
but Varchar can take in date,
Okay.
but it takes it as, I'm probably explaining this wrong,
Yeah.
but I don't think so. But it takes it in as a sentence,
Okay.
as in it's still like I can pull the data in any
Okay.
format. It doesn't matter.
Okay. So like auto formats based on its structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't auto format it. It just takes the data in no matter
Okay.
how it is.
Okay.
Now, for me to be able to manipulate the Varchar data,
Okay.
I can do that by just easily doing in SQL. I can just do a cast.
Okay.
I'll say cast this Varchar data
Okay.
as a date.
Okay. Okay. So Varchar doesn't really care.
It doesn't really care. It will take in the data.
Okay.
It will take in this image
Gotcha.
if it wants to.
Okay. And then it saves it, whatever, and then
Yeah,
you
it
can
saves that
pull
wa-
it out.
yes.
Now, when you pull it out, is that with
can-
SQL?
I can, well, I don't, it doesn't have to be just SQL.
Okay.
But in SQL, I can easily do a cast statement.
Okay.
And cast that date.
Okay.
Or cast whatever is in the column that's
Gotcha.
a record data type.
Gotcha.
Cast it as whatever I want.
Gotcha.
And then do whatever manipulation I need to do with that data.
Okay.
But we have landed the data on our side.
Okay.
Now we need to do the initial, okay, we have the data. Is this the data that we need? Is it the correct format that we want? Okay, let's say that is good to go, GTG.
Okay.
You've heard that before?
Good to go.
Yeah, good to go. Yeah, now it's good to go. Now, the next thing that comes up, and this is actually new, reconciliation.
Okay.
Okay? what we're getting from the vendor is trip data.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we need to make sure that the trip data, which is in the back end,
Yeah.
is as accurate as possible in the front end.
Gotcha.
So now, reconciliation means that, okay, we have a count of data that we received for the last day. Now, vendor, can you provide us the actual amount of trips that we're actually supposed to receive?
Yep.
We get that. Now we have to actually match that data.
Gotcha.
That is its own manipulation in itself, because in the past, we're getting a CSV file that just says, okay, well, on this date, we have this amount of trips. On this date, we have this amount of trips. Now we have to go inside the data set that we just received, which is in the sync.
Yep.
Now we have to start doing counts based on a specific column.
Gotcha. Okay. So like in Splunk, we call it like a stats count, essentially.
Yeah. So we get the data, we do the reconciliation, we go back to the business intelligence team, we confirm, okay, well, is this reconciliation correct? Done, and that's it. And now, just to be on the safe side on our part, we go into the Azure the pipeline that we created for the data factory, and we add notifications for just in case things don't work out.
Okay.
You know, it's nice to put in some notifications. You will catch stuff without having to do manual process of saying, oh my God, this job failed. Now you have to research. But yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Cool. All right, guys. I just want to say thank you to Mr. Yomi on explaining this. My SQL knowledge is trash, but he helped me understand a bunch of things today, especially with ADF. If you have any questions in regards to like any of the topics and any of the concepts that Yomi talked about, feel free to hit us up at africansintechnology@gmail.com. Again, it's africansintechnology@gmail.com. Or you can just leave a comment, Instagram, TikTok, wherever, YouTube, and we'll get back to you. So want to give a big shout again to Yomi for what you've done, man. So really appreciate it, bro.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Very welcome. We got Yomi's information on how to contact him. So if you have any questions for him, we'll have his information on how to get in touch with him below the video. So thank you again, fam. My name is Sar Levy. This is Africans in Tech, where we're building bridges and shaping futures in tech. Hey, what up, fam? This is Sar Levy, host of Africans in Tech, where we're building bridges and shaping futures in tech. Just a quick reminder for those who've not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. You can catch all of our content, including our whiteboard sessions, where you'll find our full-length videos on our channel. And hit that notification bell, fam. All right?